I mean, this is absolute. People can say what they want about this podcast, and obviously we're trying to get it off the ground. But you will not go on any other podcast and learn that Jonathan Wilson has it. Hello, welcome back to 1992 with myself, Dan Bardell, and journalistic and broadcasting legend Jonathan Wilson, where we preview the Premier League every single week, but there's no Premier League to preview this week. So we've jumped on to do another unplanned show. By unplanned, I mean we have absolutely no running order in front of us whatsoever, no bullet points, but we have got a couple of kind of topics that we want to talk about. But as usual, I'm sure we'll talk about everything but the topics that we're actually supposed to talk about. So we're going to do a little bit of Premier League, looking at the state of how it is so far this season. And we're going to do a little bit of England as well, because I think Jonathan has some concerns about England moving forward, don't you, Jonathan?
Yes, but before we get to that, I love how you present this sort of Bardell and Wilson unplanned, as if we're taking some massive artistic risks, when actually it's just neither of us could be asked to prepare.
I think it's better. The week I forgot to do a running order was the best show, so I'm just moving forward with that. Really,
I just hope the listeners appreciate this high wire act that we're performing.
Exactly. I've likened us to Bardell and Skinner unplanned before to you, but you don't remember that show.
No, I don't. I mean, obviously, I remember Bardell and Skinner, but
sure.
I was retweeted by David Bardell during the 2018 World Cup. It was a great one.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to Bardell and Skinner route as well, we better get going on our World Cup song as well. So we'll have a think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably your department rather than mine, but
you don't strike me as someone who enjoys World Cup songs. Have you got like a favourite or?
I don't mind the concept of them. I just can't sing, wouldn't sing.
No.
It was I was put under immense pressure as a child to join the church choir, and I was essentially kidnapped at the end of Sunday school one day and forced to do a choir test. And they thought I'd thrown it, and they were really angry with me. But it's just no, I genuinely can't do it. Like, it's not that I'm doing it badly. It's I just can't sing. I don't really listen to music, to be honest. I don't.
Really?
Yeah, the only time I listen to music is occasionally when I'm writing and I need to drown out the side of. I used to live sort of above a kind of. It was like a creche on the bottom floor of the flats, and so they'd sometimes go outside, and if they were running about screaming, I'd put music on to drown them out.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't really listen to. And occasionally, it's quite useful for getting in the right mood for writing. So if you're writing something, I don't know, about Budapest during the Second World War. Listening
as you normally are,
as I tend to be, listening to some sort of sad Central European music is gets you in the right mood for it. And I listen to quite a lot of Morricone. I think that's quite useful for writing.
Who?
Ennio Morricone did the scores for like loads of Sergio Leone films. So the soundtrack for Once Upon a Time in America, I think is what I think for me as a total non-music expert, I think is the greatest soundtrack.
Okay.
But he did Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More. He did Milena. He did a lot. Well, yeah, he did loads.
Okay. Well, I also understood about two things that you said there. So that was good. 3 minutes in, and we have already gone off on a tangent. You see, if it was planned, we wouldn't have gone and spoke about that stuff that you've just spoken about there, would we?
Have you seen Once Upon a Time in America?
I don't think so. I know what it is, but I don't think I've ever seen it. Yeah, it's a film.
It is a film, yes.
Yeah,
it's a film about Jewish gangsters in New York.
I haven't seen it, but I do know it's a film, and
it's. I love it. I think it's a magnificent film. De Niro's in it. Who else? Elizabeth McGovern. What's the fella called? I've forgotten his name.
I don't know. It's got potential to be a great podcast.
James Woods.
Okay. Oh, I think James Woods in Elf. Is that James Woods?
I have no idea.
Okay.
He's in Salvador. He's very good in Salvador. Anyway, it's one of my favourite films. It's very long. You've got to be in the mood for it. You've got to have time for it.
All right. I'll set myself some homework to try and watch it before next week.
De Niro having like an opium dream, and so everything's sort of very sort of fuzzy. And but De Niro character, who's kind of the hero, is an awful bloke. Like he does some absolutely unspeakable things in that. But yeah, anyway. England, yes, I have.
So we'll start talking of awful blokes. Let's get into the prediction league. Then Jonathan Wilson still top because he got 9 points this week, taking him to 90. I got 8 points, which puts me on the score that Jonathan was on last week of 81. So not ideal, but you said to me, I keep saying it. I keep getting 8 points. I'm going to win the league, but you keep getting more than me, so that's probably not going to be the case.
This week was a very strange week in that I got 8 correct results and no correct scores. Didn't get a single bonus, but I got Haaland as a bonus for first scorer. Got Sunderland wrong. But I see, if Sunderland hadn't scored in that game, I'd said Arsenal to win 2-0. I said Saka to score first. If Sunderland hadn't scored in that game, I'd have got 4 points. But they scored twice, unfortunately.
Well, you're going to continue to predict them to not win or not get positive results. I'm sure. I've noticed you always predict Villa to win and Sunderland to lose, is what I've noticed.
Well, Villa did win. I was right.
No, I know. So I can actually keep that up. Let's keep going with the Wilson method of predictions. It does seem to be working for both teams generally.
I thought Bournemouth were. Is there a slight echo? Can you hear a slight echo?
No.
I don't know. Bournemouth, I think recently there's been signs of a bit of fatigue there. So that's why I thought Villa would win. I didn't think they'd win that comfortably.
No.
Although, I mean, I saw that Bournemouth won the XG. So, I've only seen the highlights of the game.
Did he get a penalty? I don't know whether that affects XG.
Yeah, it would do. Yeah.
Great save.
I think XG for individual games doesn't necessarily give you the full picture. I think over a season it probably does work out, but because it doesn't take account of game state. So
yeah, well, I can tell you Villa were well worth the win.
Yeah, well, I think what often happens is a team goes a couple of goals up, then obviously they don't need to attack. They're quite happy to play on the break.
Yeah,
and they probably are more dangerous playing like that. But what it means is the other team can then sort of build up XG but without scoring. And so it looks like they've been dominant when actually they've always been behind.
Are you saying XG is rubbish?
No, I'm not saying. I just think you've got to put it in context.
Okay, it's interesting. Well, we don't ever really speak about things like that, do we?
Well, and the other thing, which it's a point that Miguel Delaney alerted me to, and I don't know if he's got any deeper knowledge of this or whether this is just sort of a something he's noticed himself, but he was suggesting, it seems to make sense to me, that XG is very good when everybody plays sort of a Guardiola style process football, but maybe it's less good at the sort of football we've got now, the quite direct football, get the ball in the box. Because often a ball can be played in the box, it can be really dangerous, but it doesn't actually result in a chance or even a chance of a chance.
Yeah.
And so that wouldn't register on the XG.
Yeah.
That was always one of my... I think the XG models the clubs use are probably more sophisticated than the public-facing ones. But one of my issues with early XG, and I think it's been corrected in most models, is that across the flashes across the box, which just needs a touch to go in, wouldn't necessarily register as a chance. Whereas anybody who's watched football for a long time knows that if you put loads of crosses in the box, there is a chance one of them's going to get a touch, it's going to fall right for a forward. It's not as precise as sort of slow build up, cut the ball back from a byline for somebody running onto it, but equally it's a way of playing, and against certain types of defense with certain types of player, it can be the most effective way of playing. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't know enough about this. I quite like to talk to a stats person about this, but I do wonder whether it takes the models a bit of time to catch up when there has been such a radical shift in style of play as we've had now. If the model's based on the last 20 years of data, well, this year feels quite different in terms of how teams play from the last 20 years. So as I say, I don't know that. It just seems to me a potential issue.
I've got an XG hookup for you if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone did when it first XG came on the scene. I got asked by an XG person, would I like this book? They wrote a book and sent me a book.
Oh, did you say a book or a hookup?
A book. Those things that you do every three or 4 months. a book. Any books you want to plug whilst I've just given you that in? I'm surprised you didn't leap on it straight away.
Well, it's 6 weeks till Christmas, so I think people should be thinking very carefully about presents.
Very much so.
And what better present than the power and the glory, the history of the World Cup, or perhaps you think behind the curtain, story of my travels in Eastern European football. Maybe you think that's ideal for Christmas. It's got a big star on the front, and you don't get more Christmassy than that.
I have you can just about see your book over my shoulder on the window.
Oh, I can. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on top of that Villa whiskey bottle, but my wife has moved it, so you used to be able to see it clear. I'll make sure that's rectified for next week's pod. But yeah, if you're looking for the perfect Christmas gift, do get do get one of Jonathan's many, many, many books. Maybe I'll get my dad one for Christmas. He informed me last week, Jonathan, that he listened to our pod for the first time this season, even though he absolutely loves you and he's told me many times that he thinks you're a class act. This was the first time he'd listened to the pod this season. He said he enjoyed it.
Good. Well, he's got a lot of back listening to catch up on.
He has. I would, so far, 11 minutes in, I wouldn't recommend anyone listen to this podcast because we haven't spoke about any football at all, really. Should we rectify that and start?
Let's do that, yeah.
Yeah. What, do you want to start with England or do you want to start with the Premier League, Jonathan?
Should we start with Premier League because that's respective, and then?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're the host. You decide.
I am the host, but as you know, Jonathan, as we keep saying, there's no running order here whatsoever, so we can do whatever we want. That's the joy of being a lesser podcast that's making its way through the ranks at the moment. We've no podcast. We've no producer. It doesn't really matter what we do, but the only people that it really affects is me and you at the moment.
Well,
but we are looking to build
to it as well. That's the problem.
Yeah, we are looking to build. So make sure you tell all your friends and your family.
And do rate and review us. Give us 5-star reviews. That does help. Do comment in the various places.
Yeah,
all of that helps the algorithm.
Maybe we should get ourselves some mic covers as well, because I've noted that you keep advertising a different podcast that you're doing on this podcast every week on your microphone cover.
Yeah, Libero. I mean, we do have a producer, but it's still pretty ramshackle.
Oh, okay.
It's an independent artisanal production. Should we put it that way?
But I noticed that obviously you do that podcast with all your friends that I would say that are at a certain level, and when you started doing that podcast, you never thought, I'm going to ask Dan to do that. And then when I thought I'm going to start a podcast, I thought I'm going to ask Jonathan to do that.
Look, it was the selection process was fraught. Okay. It was rigorous. I wouldn't have been able to swing it on my own. So that's why we ended up with the 7 that we ended up with.
Okay.
But if there are opportunities there in the future, we've got your name on file.
It's a real shame. I know you. I know Jack Pitbrook. I don't think I know anyone else who does your podcast that well. No, actually, I've done the Guardian with a few of them. I do know them. I've just not made the selection process. But if anyone drops out, Jonathan, I'm there. I'm ready.
As I say, we have your name on file. Thank you.
Thank you. We still haven't spoken about any Premier League or England. So let's talk about Premier League. What's the most except for the style, because I feel like people have done that to death now. What's the most interesting thing that's happened in the Premier League this season so far for you?
Form of the promoted sides has been really encouraging. I actually last weekend was quite interesting just because of the sort of mood shift that. I felt I was as guilty of this as anybody. I felt this was going to be a procession for Arsenal. I couldn't see Liverpool or City putting together a consistent enough run to challenge them. And Arsenal, I think their squad is exceptional. I think they've done really well in terms of identifying weaknesses in the squad and correcting those. Because they've actually got quite a lot of injuries at the minute, but you barely notice. I mean, the fact they didn't have either Havertz or Gyökeres or Gabriel Jesus on Saturday, I guess you noticed that Mourinho was there. And we did maybe look a little bit short of centre forward Nous. Although Mourinho, I think, also does a perfectly good job. The fact that they can score from open play, they can score from set plays. They've worked out a way of getting goals, even when they are getting frustrated, even when they can't cut through a low block. They get the set plays, and they're as dangerous to anybody from set plays probably in the world. So I had sort of thought, it is Arsenal's. And then, they dropped 2 points. City, I don't even sure they were that impressive. Liverpool was so bad. But City have now won 7 of the last 8. The Villa game's the only exception. Maybe they're over-reliant on Haaland. And, there's something a bit funny about City in that they don't look like a Guardiola team. They don't look like the City of old. They're sort of just a normal team. They've got a really good centre-forward. Doku's in great form. Donnarumma's a sort of a... is an old-fashioned type of keeper, dominant, big keeper, and so it's not the machine that we became used to. And I think possibly we've been guilty, or I've been guilty of underestimating them as a result.
Yeah, I've been the same.
And you suddenly think, well, actually, they're only 4 points behind Arsenal. Arsenal have the one sort of flaw they've had consistently over the last 3 or 4 years is. I don't think they handle adversity particularly well. And Arsenal fans get very upset when you say that. But I mean, that's why they keep finishing second, because they are actually really good. They just drop silly points here and there. Now, this season, they've been very good at not doing that. And I don't think dropping 2 points at Sunderland is problematic.
No, not many teams will go there and get anything.
But I think it is a question that remains to be answered about can they keep their composure. And I do worry that just the way the season went and the sort of mood around it, in 22-23, and I think that was caused by the World Cup coming in the middle. There was a sense of come back after the World Cup, we were on the run in, and we weren't. We still had 20 odd games to go, and I think Arsenal, they had those very fraught games. The game they won at Villa with late goals, the game they won at home to Bournemouth with late goals, and the response to that was as if it was sort of 10 games to go. And then suddenly, oh God, we still got half a season to play, and City overhauled them. And I do worry, and I don't think this is Arsenal's fault. I think this is sort of the sort of football environment as much as anything else. Whether there's been a slight rush to crown them, and now they've got to actually still go for another 2/3 of a season, so slightly over 2/3 of a season, with City breathing down their neck and potentially being a sort of in a different style, but being as remorseless as they were 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, because I remember after 5 games and Liverpool had won every game, and people were saying, "Oh, they haven't even clicked yet. Like the league's going to be theirs. They've won every game without even clicking." And it was too early then. I think because Arsenal had lost to Liverpool and drawn with Manchester City, which are okay results. Like obviously losing to not great, but do you know what I mean? They're acceptable results. And people started to say at that point, "Well, Liverpool are winning when they're not playing well, so they're going to win the league." Things change every week. It's a different landscape and it's a different picture.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that we'd be looking beyond the results at the processes. So, I mean, I remember 14-15, Chelsea played on the first game of the season was a Monday night away at Burnley, and they won it 3-1. And I was certain from that moment onwards they were going to win the league that season because I'd seen them the previous season. I saw what their weaknesses were, and I saw they'd fixed them.
Was that the Fabregas Schürrle goal? Was that season?
Yeah, that
what a goal
was the second goal that day, I think.
Yeah.
Diego Costa played really well that day as well and scored. So I think you can just because teams won the first 5 games doesn't necessarily mean they're brilliant. And I think I hope the way I was portraying it, I think that's the way I was doing it, was saying, look, they've won 5 out of 5. It's obviously great, and it's got points on the board, and it's putting pressure on everybody else. But they haven't been convincing at all. And I think the assumption was that they would work it out. They had Isak still to come in. They had all these exciting new expensive players. I think we probably assumed they had more of a clear plan than it appears they did. I think Gravenberch had missed a couple of games through injury at that point. So I thought, well, he gets back, they get that solidity back. And it just hasn't happened. But I think the 5 games, certainly the correct way to look at it, and I think it's the way I was doing it, was to say go either way. It could be they've been really fortunate that some kind of muscle memory of winning from last season has been getting them through these games, that they do have individual brilliance that can 10 minutes. But you can't keep doing that. Will they find the process, and will the process start working for them? Or will results drop back to perform? Will confidence suffer? It has been the latter. So, but I don't think the sense with Arsenal was that. I think there was criticism of Arsenal, correctly, I think, after the Liverpool game, that they really had a chance to go at Liverpool, that Liverpool had Szoboszlai, a fullback on one side, Kerkez on the other side. There were 2 vulnerabilities. We'd seen they were very open through midfield. The change of shape they hadn't sort of settled with, and well, they still hadn't settled. And yet sort of sat off and let Liverpool play their way into the game. And I think the particular frustration in the first half was that Madueke clearly had the run on Kerkez, and they didn't seem to be able to find a way to get the ball to him more regularly to test Kerkez. And then the second half, Liverpool had 2/3 possession. And there was a sense of Arsenal sort of letting them play themselves into form and confidence. And if you give a team as good as Liverpool, or a team with as good as Liverpool's individuals, the ball, there is always a danger that one of them is going to smack in a free kick from 30 yards because they have players who can do that. So criticism of Arteta then was justified. I think the first half against City, he made 2 changes at half time, didn't he? That I think he recognise City were very good in that game. If you remember, I mean, they took Haaland off with 15 minutes to go to protect the 1-0 and ended up conceding. But I think since then we've seen the sort of the benefit of Arteta's very process-heavy approach. I mean, I think in 11 games this season, only once have they conceded an XG of above 1, which was on the opening weekend against Manchester United. Only twice have they conceded an XG 5. I think the United game is the only time when they've had the lower XG. So if they keep going like that, they will win the league. There's no doubt. It's just whether now this sense of they've played really well. They've been putting teams away. They've not really been under pressure until this. They haven't actually pulled away from City. They haven't really got a lead. It's. I mean, a 4-point lead is obviously it's a decent lead, but it's not an 8-point. Lot sort of. There's not loads of clear water that one slip up and suddenly they're back within range. And I just that's the question for them. Their metal is being tested, and it looked like the metal, which I think is the thing that is questionable. It had looked like that might not be tested.
I said we weren't going to talk about the style of the Premier League being different this season and the style of football generally being different, but I guess it feeds into what we're talking about here. That Man City and Arsenal have kind of moved with the time, so to speak, and their teams are set up for this more physical, more direct route of football, like more basic football, basically, as we're saying. Liverpool kind of haven't moved with that. And you mentioned earlier that Arsenal and Man City have kind of strengthened their squad, like found holes and that were in their squad and strengthened them and made themselves stronger. It's almost like by strengthening Liverpool have created problems. So there's like a couple of things there that lead to the fact that Liverpool at the moment aren't as good as Manchester City and Arsenal.
The amount of change they've made was always going to be difficult. I think they've compounded that difficulty by trying to change style. Towards the end of last season, we've got to change because teams have worked out how to play against us. And that drop-off in form at the end of last season, I'm sure it was largely conditioned by the fact that already. But maybe Schlock could see it was more than that. It was that they'd begun to be worked out. It's gambled on Madrid style approach, and if you have individuals good enough, that will be fine. That will work in the modern game. I'd love to know what they planned it to look like. I mean, the other thing I think the problem with this is it's so hard to talk about without being trite. But the death of Diogo Jota, obviously, a tragedy. Obviously, has a psychological effect on players. Very hard to know who it's affected, in what way it's affected them. That's a background thing. But it also, and this is obviously the least important, pulled by another forward. Had he still been there, would they have signed both Isak and Ekitike? And it sort of appears that to replace Darwin Nunez and Jota, okay, we need two forwards. Maybe they could have done with somebody who wasn't, assuming Isak was the first choice. Maybe they could have done with somebody who wasn't established as Ekitike to come in and be understudy. Whereas having them both, every time one's left out, you sort of think, well, hang on, where's the other one? Personally, I think it's problematic to play one of them for 65 minutes, 5 minutes, in the same way West Brom did with Lukaku and Shane Long.
I'm sure. I think it's a problem when you're comparing Isak and Ekitike to Lukaku and Shane Long at West Brom, Jonathan. I would say that is a problem.
You run your arse off for 65, batter this, wear them out, and then you've got another one coming on for the last 25 minutes, half an hour. That's a horrible thing for defenders. Now, players don't seem to like that. They all seem to want to start. It sort of feels like we need to play both of them together. Now, if Wirtz was promised he was going to play as number 10, that was one of the things that made him choose Liverpool over Bayern Munich. What system were they thinking of playing? That sounds either like they're going to play one of the centre forwards and it's going to be a 4-2-3-1, which is what I played at Feyenoord. So I guess that is the more likely. But there is this intriguing possibility now. You play Wirtz behind them. You play quite a defensive midfield three. Now, there's no reason why that can't contain Szoboszlai. His energy is incredible. He'll back the season, so you can do the defensive side of things. So you could play the familiar three of Gravenberch, McAllister, and Szoboszlai as a three. You're really lacking width, so you need your two centre forwards. You need them, but I think both Ekitike and Isak can do that to a point. But also, you need very attacking fullbacks. But the fullbacks they signed in the very attacking. Kirkes and Frimpong. So if maybe that was the plan all along, but I sort of think now that the season's so far gone already, why not try it? See what happens.
So strange. Obviously, we all got carried. Well, you might not have done. It felt like everyone got carried away with all the big money signings that Liverpool made in the summer, without actually thinking, how is this all gonna mesh together? And I was thinking, like, teams don't have two centre forwards of that level. I can't think of another team that's got two very high profile centre forwards battling for one place. It's just not the done thing.
City have Holland and Mamouche, and I guess that's why City got rid of Alvarez. It wasn't that he was occupying a place that Holland wanted to occupy. Mamouche can play wide, but I think he's much better through the middle. And he's barely played this season.
No such striker problems for England, Jonathan, because we only have one centre forward, and that's Harry Kane. The squad's obviously been announced for the round of games this week. A couple of meaningless games in the sense that England have already qualified, but a chance again for Tuchel to look at people, and there's certain players that he's brought back into the squad, the likes of Bellingham, Phil Foden, who I'm not sure Phil Foden's been in the squad for a long time. But you have some concerns, you told me. I don't know what these concerns are, but you have some concerns around England.
Yeah, I don't know what they are either. I don't remember saying this, but again, my word was when
I'm going to get the text up, because you definitely did say this, Jonathan. You said after we negotiated time that was quite. We struggled with that a little bit. I said any pressing topics you want to do, and you just said England with a full stop, which I thought was quite defiant. And you then said big World Cup issues to be resolved.
Yeah, that's not about England. That's about the World Cup.
Oh, I thought you meant England going into the World Cup.
No, the issues in qualifying that are still to be resolved. Let's do England first. When Tuchel arrived and said, I want to play Premier League style football, I want to play this really high tempo football, I was sort of, oh God, no, that won't work. Because you can't play the pace of football you see in the Premier League at international level, partly because teams are not together for long enough to get the degree of coherence and sophistication you need to play at that kind of tempo, but partly because major tournaments are played in the summer, by and large. It's really hot. You can't play at that kind of tempo. We've seen England over and over again at major tournaments just running out of steam. You think of the Brazil game in 2002, didn't pick themselves up against 10 men in the second half because they were so exhausted by the heat and the humidity. You have to play at a slight, and that's not natural for. That's one of the reasons why England, I think, have historically underperformed at international level. I was much more encouraged by Anthony Barry, Tuchel's assistant, saying they're trying to play. What was the phrase he used? Like heat-proof football or something.
Heat resistant.
Heat resistant football. That's right. Yeah. And it's like good. That's what they're doing. They should be thinking. Look, Premier League players who play in Premier League regularly have an advantage over the rest of the world, because it is the tempo and physicality is so high. We've seen that in the Champions League. Liverpool bullied Real Madrid. Liverpool, who've been bullied by pretty much every Premier League team this season, were bullying Real Madrid. It's an advantage that obviously there's lots of players playing the Premier League who are not English, but the vast majority of England's squad, Harry Kane being an obvious exception, the vast majority of England's squad do play in England. They do play that style of football. To use that advantage, but in a way that will work when it's 35 degrees and 90% humidity. You can't do. The question is, how can you do it for 4 and 5 minute spells and you just batter an opponent? And I think one of the things Southgate got when he first took the job was the focus on set plays. That set plays give you a comparative training ground book that not a huge amount of work on the training field can have quite profound impact on the pitch.
Yeah, because I was going to say that heat resistant and Premier League style of football, those two things don't really correlate. They're very different. Like, if I want to be heat resistant when I'm on holiday, I have to put the brolly up, and it doesn't really work to the full extent that I'd like it to when I'm too hot on a holiday as well. So it is going to be interesting to see how they mesh those two things together. I've used the word mesh twice today.
Yeah, and it's a problem, and it's we've seen England go to both extremes. We've seen them try to play the high tempo football and running out of steam. We've seen them try to play the slow, patient football, but the truth is they're not very good at it because it's totally unnatural to them. But even if they try to slow down, it's just not their natural game. The way Declan Rice charges about all over the place. Tuchel is quite a cold, calculating figure when it comes to tactics. I think that's that is a positive. That's what one of the things when he was appointed. I thought, yeah, that's where I do well. But I'm almost encouraged by that. The fact he's had a difficult spell and put it right. Because England, I think, have been really good the last 3 games against.
Yeah, agreed.
Not particularly great opposition in Latvia, but Wales aren't a bad side. They've won the game within 20 minutes and have been pretty good, causing a lot of problems at the Euros. To go there and beat them 5-0 in what could have been a very difficult atmosphere in Belgrade, that's a really... I mean, Serbia fell apart, but they were pushed into falling apart, at least to an extent. Yeah, the fact that Tuchel has started doing one thing, didn't really work, he's reassessed and worked out a different way of doing it, I think that's very, very encouraging.
This is the thing that England managers always get criticised for not doing. So Miles Lewis-Skelly, he's basically said, well, he's not starting enough games for Arsenal, so he's not getting in the England squad. What do you make of that?
I hate the way that people try to make hard and fast rules about this. I think basis. So if Miles Lewis-Skelly had played 40 games for England and had played them well, and Tuchel knew him, and he knew how he fitted in the side, and he won the club, and Tuchel wanted to keep picking him, would not have a problem with that at all. There doesn't have to be one hard and fast rule that he prefers players playing regularly, but I'm much more concerned about him picking the team and the squad. Belief will do what he wants them to do, and maybe they're players who are playing 60 games a season. Maybe they're players who are playing 5 games a season. If you look at the teams who've won major tournaments, the consistency there. Some of them are teams with full of players who played 60 games a season. Some of them, like Greece in 2004, barely played any games at all. It's a real mix.
And in this instance as well, there's a player that's kind of emerged at a team that's flying at the moment, Manchester City, Nico O'Reilly. Left back maybe feels like a slot in the England team that isn't locked down with anyone in particular. He's playing very well for Manchester City, a midfielder that's been converted into a left back, physically very good as well. He kind of fits this brand of Premier League style football a little bit more, maybe, doesn't he? Very athletic. Like, there's a space for him to come in and stake his claim now, you would think.
There's not an obvious other candidate at the moment, so it's entirely reasonable Tuchel should have a look at him. Tries if he didn't play one of these games, and then Tuchel can make the decision based on what he's seen. Nico O'Reilly's going to be ready to play his sort of football by the World Cup. It may be he thinks, no, actually there's too much adjustment to make, and we'll leave him, and whoever the World Cup can pick him up. There's nobody who's made an overwhelming case to be the left back, and Lewis-Skelly was getting games, maybe he would have done. Nico O'Reilly seems a calmer player, I think. He's a more traditional left back in that Lewis-Skelly likes to come into midfield, likes to invert. Nico O'Reilly is overlapping. I think the simpler the better at international level, which is why I think Foden has struggled to make his mark at international level. Like Alexander, he's a player with a strange combination of attributes, and at club level you can work out a way of getting the team to work around him to compensate for his weaknesses. Much harder to do at international level. Now, if Foden is going to play as more of an 8 at City, which he's right, some games he's played as one of the 3 central midfielders breaking forward off Rodri or Nico Gonzalez. If he plays that more central role, and I think for what he said he'd rather play centrally, then that would seem an area where he may be more used to England. But England have loads of players in that area. But the fact that he can play either flank or well, it does mean that he gives you a lot of squad depth.
Yeah, he did mention, didn't he, Tuchel, that Ollie Watkins isn't in this squad. I mean, he's off form anyway, but he's not in the squad because he's carrying a niggle. So it's like Foden's the alternative number 9 in this squad, which I thought was quite interesting. Because I think it was the last round of games, I think Harry Kane either came off it was when Watkins went off at half time. He brought Rashford on. I think everyone thought Rashford was going to play as a number 9, but he went to the left, and actually Anthony Gordon played as the false 9, as he has done for the under-21s previously under Carsley. So it's interesting that he may go down that route if anything were to happen to Harry Kane, or Harry Kane not be available for a game.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense as long as you have the right players on the flanks who are going to make those runs in behind. And I think that's one of the things England got wrong at the Euros, was they had too many players who He sort of bunched.
That was terrible.
And he could have done with... I mean, I don't think Gordon was in great form. It was that friendly before the tournament when he played pretty badly and I think sort of played himself out of contention. Who was that against? Was it against Iceland? Didn't he play Iceland just before the tournament? It was some sort of very
Possibly.
Northern European team. Or was it Finland, maybe? I mean, if you got a squad of 30, I'd be surprised if he didn't take another centre forward. I think the thing that's telling with the lack of other centre forwards is it means he's not thinking of Danny Welbeck.
Yeah, I thought he might get the call up. Do we know about this 30-man squad? I know you're a man that's very much in the know, but you and your group of friends that do another podcast, you'll find out about this 30-man squad before the likes of me. Is that something that we know about?
I'm not sure we will, because these things tend to be just done by fiat, that FIFA just say this is what's happening and nobody debates it. They've definitely let it be known they're thinking about the idea. So maybe they're just sort of testing the water. But I'd look, it's not certain, but I'd say it's more likely than not they would go to 30-man squads.
God, it's too many.
It's
too many, especially the fact that you've got 11 players. You can make 5 subs. That's 16 players that can be used on a match by match basis. That's nearly half the squad is just sat there doing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the logic is because it's one extra game. You know, you have to play 8 games to win it. I guess that's what they'll use to extend it. I think maybe they think that if you're using 16, I mean, obviously you can use 17 if it goes to extra time, but if you're using 16 players a game, maybe having, so two players for each of them, obviously goalkeepers are slightly different. So maybe that's the thinking, but I don't know why you need more than 26. It seems to me it just pushes the cost up. It gives a further advantage to the bigger nations. So yeah, I don't particularly like it.
No, I'm not a fan. I'm not having that. 30-man squads can get in the bin. I'm not having that at all. Jonathan, we're at our unplanned allotted time, I would say. So is there anything else you wanted to get off your chest today before we depart?
I don't think so. Do you think there should be?
No. I'm asking you. You're the opinions guy on this show. I know I do feed a few in as well, but it's mainly all about you, in all honesty.
Well, I'm off for a little break to Florence tomorrow, so very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, if you want to tell people that's nice.
Yeah, very good deal on the BA website. So very, very happy about that. So I'll be back next week, but it's always good to take the.
Yeah.
I think it tells you how diminished this final round of World Cup qualifiers has become. That I see it as an opportunity to take time off. 4 days of eating pasta and reading my book and looking at art.
Reading one of your own books, Jonathan. That's very self-indulgent.
It's you can always learn.
Will you be taking the penguin with you that you purchased a few weeks ago?
No, this is the first time we're going to leave him. I'd say by himself. I mean, there's plenty of other teddy bears in the cupboard. Yeah. But it's the first time I'm going to leave him. I think it's a big step for the young man, but I think he's ready for it. I just think, penguins are flightless, and I think putting them on planes too often, I think it's almost cruel.
Yeah, fair enough.
So he's going to sit in the cupboard, and I'm sure him and his mates in there will get up to loads of mischief while we're away, just as long as they tidy up by the time we're back.
I mean, this is people can say what they want about this podcast, and obviously we're trying to get it off the ground, but you will not go on any other podcast and learn that Jonathan Wilson has a teddy bear cupboard. That is, like, you would never have guessed that. I would never have thought that you had a teddy bear cupboard, Jonathan.
It's a shelf in the wardrobe, and the majority of them are my wife's. But,
the majority, not all of them. Then the majority.
Well, some of those lads have been through a lot with me. I'm not gonna turn me back on them.
This is absolutely.
The oldest one in there is a koala bear called Cooch, who my parents were given when they got married in 1967.
Wow,
she was at Wembley. She was at Wembley in 1973 when Sunderland won the FA Cup.
This is amazing. I mean, we could do a whole show on your teddy bear. People, that would be incredible. You come in and you introduce each teddy bear and tell us where they came from. We could get a whole show out of that, Jonathan, with the way we do things.
I mean, some of them would be very up for it. I think some of them might be a bit camera shy, but I'll put it to them. See what they say. I mean, I just know they're going to talk about image rights and fees, and it's going to be a nightmare.
This is unbelievable stuff. I'm looking forward to this. Your house appears to be like Toy Story as well, where the toys come alive. This is like, I am fascinated by this. Anyway, I might even title this up as Jonathan Wilson's teddy bear cupboard.
They don't come alive, Dan. They are alive.
That's true. Very, very, very. But if it was like Toy Story, though, you wouldn't know that.
Maybe I'm just brighter than the child in Toy Story.
Maybe. Right, we really have. I mean, we have got away from things big time here. Despite the way this pod has ended, you should subscribe to the channel and do all these things that we speak of. You should subscribe on YouTube and give us 5 stars on Spotify, and make sure that you tell everyone you know that the pod is here and that they should be listening to it every week in the build up to the Premier League fixtures, and even when there's not Premier League fixtures and it's an international break like this week. Jonathan, all that's left to say really is that I hope you have an excellent time in Florence. Enjoy your break. I hope the teddy bears behave themselves whilst you're away. This has been 1992. It's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from Jonathan Wilson too.